Hello friends. We've been hearing a little bit about the Plenary Council, which sounds like a committee or something we're going to be doing, but in fact the Plenary Council is more of a process. There's particularly a process around listening and discerning how God might be calling us as a church in Australia at this time and where we might go with that call from the Lord. So I thought I might say a little bit to you about what I understand listening and discerning to be, and that may help you in your own understanding as well. I think the first thing I want to say about listening and discerning is that those of you who are parents, you're doing it all the time. You're listening to your children and wanting the good for them. By listening to them, you're working out what might be a way in which they can flourish, and then discerning a process around that flourishment. So families are a kind of a great example of, or at least can be a great example of how we can practice listening and discerning in ordinary ways. I think as people of faith we can continue to do that in our lives in growing with Jesus. So we have each been made in God's image. So we've been chosen to look like his son Jesus. We have a family resemblance, if you like. So part of the listening and discerning within our Christian context is getting a sense of what we look like. What is it to look like Jesus in our own circumstances now? And so the listening and the discerning in that sort of context is about getting a sense of who we are and then working towards how we can live that well. So in all of that, if we're going to talk about the plenary process of listening and discerning, in a sense it's a lot about looking and acting. What do we look like as a church in Australia at this time? What does God want us to look like? An important question to ask of each of us. How might we flourish in looking more and more like the image that God has made us in? And what do we need to do to bring that about? So perhaps in your listening and discerning in parish context, school context, small group context, whatever, have a think about what we are to look like as God's people. What's it like to reflect the image of Jesus? And then discerning how we might do that really well. So I encourage you to get into the listening and discerning, and the looking and acting, and do so with the great hope that each one of us are made in God's image. We're made to look like Jesus Christ.